Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. I'm Tammy Diedrich, the Managing Editor of IBM Systems Magazine, and I'm the moderator for this event. Today's webinar is sponsored by Phoenix Software and is titled JES Systems Management Software, More with Less for Less. Our featured speaker today is Ed Jaffe. Ed joined Phoenix Software International in 1987. He became the Manager of Research and Development in the mid-1990s and was named the Chief Technology Officer in 2009. Ed co-manages the MVS program at Share and is recognized throughout the mainframe community as a subject matter expert and a strong advocate for Z Systems platform. Today, Ed will explain the functions and focus areas for the current release of JES and give you an in-depth look at the technology behind JES Web. Following the presentation, we will have a brief Q&A period. Feel free to enter your question in the question panel on your screen anytime during the presentation. Now, without further ado, thanks again for joining us today. And Ed, I'll turn the presentation over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Tammy, and thank you all for joining today to listen to me talk for, I guess, just the better part of an hour. I will start by giving a little bit of a background on our company. For those that don't know, Phoenix Software has actually been in business since 1978, and we are primarily a mainframe software company, although we do have a PC business as well and some other areas. But we are a relatively small company. We have 3 locations, LA, Tulsa, and Raleigh, and we consider ourselves to be very responsive to customer needs. Some people have likened that to turning a PT boat instead of an aircraft carrier. We like that. We're a privately held company, so we don't have shareholders steering our direction. We stay in touch with our code. We know what it does. We're not afraid to change it. All of our developers are seasoned pros living and working in the U.S., so no part of our operation is outsourced. And our customers are Fortune 500 corporations, small businesses, and everything in between, both domestically here in the United States and internationally throughout the world. We focus on best practice security policies and, to make sure our customers' data is protected and secure. Now, we focus on leveraging the latest hardware and software technology. That is a big area of focus for us. And the reasons are, number one, we care about performance. That is the culture of our company. It's been that way since 1978. As Tammy said, I joined in '87, and that culture was there when I arrived. And the latest technology is usually better performing. We also care about reducing customer costs, and that latest technology is usually trying to help reduce those costs because of the cost curve on our platform. And we care deeply about this platform, and leveraging the latest technology helps us compete against emerging alternatives. Customers and ISVs, anyone that stays just using the old technology year in, year out and not looking at new technology on Z Systems is really doing the platform a disservice, because at some point someone will compare you against one of these other platforms and then find, hey, they're doing this really cool stuff, and what are you doing? You're still, using 80-column card images and stuff like that. So, and lastly, technology is just plain cool. We're sort of technology junkies. We love doing this stuff, and so, we really focus on it because we're the kind of people that like to do exactly that. Our support is top rated, 5 out of 5. We get that from our customers. Some of them are required to do these ratings yearly. We do provide annual releases, not every 2 years or any other schedule. And we are always ready for ESP. Many of our customers are ESP customers, and we make sure we're ready for that. So what do we mean by more with less for less? Well, it's real simple. More means, better functionality and ease of use. So you're getting more for, as a product. So we don't have a trade-off between performance and function. We have some great extensions to the product, fantastic APIs. The ease of use is off the charts. With less means using fewer machine resources, and that's a big, big focus. As I said, that's been a focus for this company from the beginning. And you can see here some benchmarks that were done in-house, admittedly, so your mileage may vary. But you could see that EJES is compared to the traditional SSI 80 here, which would represent 100%, and EJES is between 3.5 and 12.5 times faster in a JES 2 environment. Faster meaning using fewer CPU resources. And in a JES 3 environment, we clocked it at 5.4 times faster. So in other words, you can have 5.4 users doing using the same amount of resource as you would one user that's using SSI 80. And now that's an apples-to-apples comparison. If of that CPU that's left, we can offload up to 94% of that. At least that's what our measurement shows under ISPF, for example, to a zip processor. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about the benefits of zip and why that's important later. And as I said, these numbers are based on internal benchmarks. And lastly, 4 less basically is just, it's a cost statement. We're just saying that, our product costs less to acquire and to operate than our competitors. We have been putting a lot of downward price pressure on them, and they keep lowering and lowering and lowering their prices. Even if they got to the point where they were even Steven with us, it wouldn't really matter because you're still getting, then it would be more with less for the same. So however you want to look at it, it's a win-win all the way around. So as I said, we're technology junkies, and we're into this stuff, and we really take a leadership role. And here's an example. These are I put together this chart to show some of the cool technology we've leveraged since 2002, and a lot of this stuff, it's amazing. People still aren't doing. Like a lot of products aren't supporting large DASD data sets. We were doing that in 2004. Our zip redirection has been in place since 2007. We did all of our EAV work in 2008 and 2010, and I was just in Poughkeepsie 2 weeks ago listening to people talk about how there's still a lot of software products, even some inside IBM, that do not support EAV, amazingly. So, there's a lot of lag on this kind of stuff, but we don't do that. In our case, I used to work for a guy that used to tell me, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I really didn't like that. So now that I'm in charge, I say, if it's not using the latest technology, it is broke and it should be fixed. So that's sort of our philosophy. And at the moment, we're in the middle of this Arc Level 2 A-Mode 64 restructure of all of our software. We've done working on JES Web, as I'll be talking about, and just a lot of really cool stuff that we're working on and have been working on for quite some time. One of the areas that we really focus on is user experience. It has to be the best possible one. And, there's a lot of very unfriendly products in the mainframe space, and we really try to stay away from all that. And, we do that. Of course, we have robust functionality. Everybody says that, so I don't expect you to take my word for it over anybody else's, but we do get a lot of feedback from our customers, and they tell us, yeah, you guys are, at the forefront of a lot of things. We innovate all the time, and, we're always trying to make things better every year. We really, really focus on interface consistency. Our product's been around since 1990, and, that makes it a very mature product. And what can happen is if you add new features and they operate a little differently than the old ones, then you start to have exceptions. Things work a little differently on this screen than they did on that. You sort of have to learn these quirks and special cases. And as new features are added over time, the problem just gets worse and worse and worse. And you get to the point where, people are sitting around remembering, oh, yeah, on this screen, your mask can be an asterisk, but on this one it has to be a double asterisk, things like that. So we really try hard not to let that happen to us. We make sure that we go back and, if it means bringing old stuff current to the way the newer things work, that's what we do. And we want everything to be 100% identical throughout the product. So if you know how to use it in one place, you know how to use it in all places. We are big 3270 people, but that's not stopping us from doing web or anything like that. But I just want to say that, people call it a green screen, but there's really a lot more to it. There's custom geometries, extended highlighting color, graphical characters, program symbols, vector graphics, all kinds of great stuff, and we try to leverage all of that in our product wherever it's appropriate to do so to really enhance the experience overall. And we're big believers in the principle of least astonishment down here at the bottom. You know, when you do something, if it does something strange, that's, you know, that violates the principle of least astonishment. And so we try to make sure that, and we talk about these things ad nauseum, I guess, to make sure that when we do something, if a user tries to do something, it does something that seems to make the most sense for them, and we try to do that across the board. So for us, it is a matter of pride. I mean, we're involved in the mainframe community. As Tammy mentioned, I'm the co-manager of the MVS program at Share. I know a lot of people in this community, and you know, I consider customers to be my friends. And you know, if it's less than excellent, it'd be embarrassing. So we really try hard. So we are doing things, positioning for the future. I'll be showing you some of this stuff. It's more than positioning now. We're looking at some realities, but we still have work to do, of course. People are concerned about skills gaps, people retiring, the new generation that doesn't want to take the 2-day course on how, or 2-minute course on how to use a 3270. So you know, we've done some work in this area. We've embraced some installation GUI installer for the mainframe. Sorry about that slip there. And we're using CA Core Software Manager for that. Now, that doesn't mean our traditional install is bad. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine just installed EJES and said, wow, that's really great. But the new generation might be interested in the GUI installers, and they do provide value add. I have played with CA Core Software Manager, and I do actually recommend it. I think it's a cool thing. So nobody paid me to say that, just so you know. For end users, JES Web is our new direction for them. The intent there is to create a de facto interface for JES users that are uncomfortable with traditional 3270. We're not trying to replace 3270. We love 3270. But for those users that are not comfortable with that, we want to provide, you know, a de facto interface for them that really, really operates in a way that doesn't lose the quality of service that we're used to having from our 3270 interface. And the API there, the REST API, is intended to provide a framework for the creation of Eclipse plugins, mobile apps, basically any kind of web services clients. And the key here is that we've implemented all this in Java, and why, the answer why to the question why is that IBM has given z/OS Java highly preferential treatment on Z systems in the hardware design and software terms and conditions. And, you know, it's just a solid platform choice. It has great investment protection. And at the moment, IBM is making the claim that Java runs better on System Z than it does on any other platform. And to be honest, I think I believe that, because it is really a screamer. It's fantastic. This is our picture of the JES solar system. I love this picture. We use it in competitive situations because what you can do is just put big X's through things that, you know, other competitors don't do, because we have so many different ways to get into our product. You know, we standalone TP monitor environment or TSO users through ISPF, all these different languages, Windows users, you know, other kinds of programmable interfaces down here. We have JES Web over here, our APIs here, CICS users. So there's really a lot of ways to use JES. The intent is to allow you to use it any way that you want and not have to change all of your business practices just to be able to use this product. And then that was a single system view. This would be the solar system then as part of a galaxy, and the galaxy is the multi-system view where you can see that we're leveraging XCF and coupling facilities, XCS, and so forth to get the job done. So I promised I'd talk about zip redirection, and hopefully this is nothing new for people, but I feel, you know, we did spend a lot of time making this work, so I want to talk about it. If you move work to a zip, you are lowering your software bill. That's the bottom line, right? And especially with anything that runs at prime time. And our stuff generally does tend to run prime time, so we want to try to offload as much as possible. those cycles consumed on zip don't count towards the capacity upon which, software running in the LPAR is priced if they follow certain rules like IBM WLC does or ISVs like Phoenix Software, where we provide subcapacity pricing. Now, if you move work to the zip, you can improve the performance of that work itself in a couple of ways. Number one, zips tend to be underutilized. They are in many shops, so there's less contention with the processor. Also, zips themselves have interrupts disabled, so you're not going to field I/O interrupts and get your work interrupted while it's trying to get something done. And also, if you happen to have a subcapacity machine like we do, zip execution gives you a big boost because the zips are always running at full speed. So the stuff really screams, and it makes a big difference. And then, of course, anything you move on to a zip is coming off of a CP, so therefore there's more availability on the CP, and so other work that isn't zip eligible can benefit from that. And here's just a little chart. It's meant to be a timeline thing here where an ISPF user hits enter. We run a little bit on the CP, of course, because ISPF runs on a CP. When ISPF returns to us, then we're back on the zip over here. And then we just stay on the zip for the duration of the transaction in general. We don't have the problem that a lot of software houses have where every time they want to do I/O, for example, they have to switch back to the CP, do the I/O, switch back to the zip, run some more, switch back to the CP. And it's a good thing, too, because that's expensive. Going back and forth like that is not cheap. And so, some of them talk about a trade-off. Well, your overall utilization is a little higher, but most of it was on zip, therefore it was worthwhile. In our case, no. It's all on zip. We do our I/O over here because we use a start I/O driver, which means we don't need to get back to the CP. We can, call the services we want from there and so forth. Here's the I/O kind of thing. And then at the end, return control back. There's some stuff that will run on the CP here. Again, ISPF, rewriting the screens and so forth, and we're back. So we just put that in a loop using a little PCOM macro, just hitting enter over and over and over again to refresh the JES-2 hold display, and what we showed was a 94% offload onto the zip. So 6% on the CP and 94% on the zip. Another thing that we've done, traditional multi-system client-server request response model, most of these things are designed to where you don't really have much control over the data. All the requests can be very different from other requests. So you don't really have a choice. There's nothing wrong with this model, but basically what you get is a situation where your resources required are n times those needed for a single request, right? Makes sense. You have 20 requesters, and over here you have 20 responders, and you have 20, flows over the network and so forth and so on. So with our model, we really, really understand our data. It gives us an opportunity to do some optimization. And so we are able to set up servers on all the systems. We have a server here and a server remotely, and maintain these things that we call result sets for different requests. And when this result set needs refreshing, one request goes across to the remote side where the result set is then refreshed from whatever the resources are on that system. Only the changed pages are sent back across the CTC or coupling link or even a network to update the result set, and then that result set is then used by all the requesters. So in fact, this model scales very, very well, and the more users you have, in fact, the faster it seems to run on a per user basis. So whereas the traditional model gets slower and slower, the more users you have, ours actually gets faster and faster. So that's kind of a cool way of doing things for us, and really makes a big difference. I'm not going to go over all these things about our tabular displays because I really do want to get to show you some cool stuff in JES Web. But hopefully you can download this thing later and read through some of this stuff. A couple of highlights I do want to point out that we extend the ISPF behaviors rather than redefining them on the select command. That's part of what we consider to be, part of user friendliness. We don't want to redefine commands. We don't want to change the way things work just because somebody gets into our product. We want to adhere to the rules that are established for the overall environment in which we find ourselves operating, and that's what makes something easy to use, because you don't have to learn these various exceptions. We do a lot of stuff with color emphasis and some other sorts of things, so these colorized areas do help people understand what's going on these screens in sort of a non-textual heuristic way. You know, direct over types and pop-ups, I'm sure a lot of people do that. Point and shoot, we actually have users doing this, and they tell us ours is for real because we actually used it and tried to use it and made people use it and found all the little behavioral things that you know, needed to be tweaked in order to make point and shoot actually something users can use. So rather than it just being a line item on someone's development worksheet, ours is a real deal. Intelligent column formatting is kind of a neat stuff. This is big down here. Pop-up help for every tabular column. You wouldn't be surprised how many people have thanked us for this, because you actually have an educational product there as well. It teaches end users about what all the columns mean. If a job abends, you can get help, and it tells you exactly what that abend code meant. You know, so if you see a 722, it'll say, oh, you ran out of spool space, or you had too many lines, whatever. If you have a 322, you know, it's a wait type timeout or whatever it is. I forget which timeout is which, but anyway, we document all those in those pop-ups, so that's neat. And the overall experience, as I say, clean, consistent, powerful, and intuitive. That's the intent there. Our native browsers, again, there's a lot of information on here. The bottom line is that a lot of folks would try to get out of a native browser and use ISPF instead, because they want the behaviors that ISPF gives them. And in our case, we've emulated most of those important behaviors from ISPF, like the sorts of behaviors you'd get inside ISPF view or edit when you're doing finds and things like that. And so you don't need to use ISPF unless you really want to edit the data or save it somewhere or something like that. Otherwise, if you use our browsers, you get all that ISPF function plus additional function, right? We have enhanced search capabilities that you wouldn't get with just regular ISPF. We're data set aware in terms of the JES data sets. We could scroll around by data set and things like that. It's fully integrated with our extract function and a lot of other things. So, and then we have a lot of specialty browsers, message summaries and control block dumps and, you know, contention analysis, and it just goes on and on and on. So there's a lot of really good stuff here. And again, if you do want to use the ISPF view and edit or browse, you have those capabilities either just by typing the word view at the top, for example, or you could initially start it off that way. So you're not losing that, you're just gaining. And I talked a little bit about extract before. Anything scrollable can be extracted. So you can extract report data. You can also extract tabular displays, you know, with or without the titles, etc. The conversion to target file attributes is all seamless, and you know the carriage control, it's fully reversible, so you can go from ASA to machine, and then go back from machine to ASA, and it's right back where it started. Kind of neat stuff there. The sysout extract, you know, you can actually build all the output descriptor stuff that would otherwise require maybe under TSO the use of the outdes command or something like that. You can even clone the original job name and job ID so that the JES-generated header pages don't change. So if you extract something, let's say a job got purged by accident, not the job, but the output, something happened to it, and it's still on spool, you could re-extract it and even give it the original job name and job ID and get the full JES-generated header page out there. It's kind of cool. So here's just an overview of that. You know, we can write the classic MBS data sets, out to sysout, or ZOS Unix file systems, and of course those can be, you know, ZFS, HFS, or anything that's NFS mounted. Talked a little bit about our APIs. They are best of breed. I have done the research, and I could certify that's true, and we've also been told that. Our base API is callable from anything, assembler, C++, COBOL, etc. Very important here that we use a stateful API model, okay? So we're supporting inline decision-making, okay, and enumeration of large requests. And what this gives you is a lot of abilities that you don't have with a stateless model, and also reduced overhead, because stateless models have to start everything up from scratch on every on every new request. In our case, we don't do that. It's a fully stateful model. The Rex API, of course, that's the most popular one for sort of ad hoc work. It's super easy. I mean, it looks very much like exec.io. The way that we've done all this stuff, you don't have a million special variables to pass parameters in and things like that. It's a very generalized interface that lets you do everything. Oh, and I think it's important. I skipped over this, but every function available to interactive users in a non-ISPF 3270 environment is available via the API. Every function. So you're not missing out on anything. You can do a full implementation of anything using that API. Our Java API is really good, and it's great, too, because it was developed by people that really, really understand Java, not just some assembler programmers who took a few Java courses. You know what I'm saying? And the folks that are using this really appreciate how well done it is. And, again, it's just as powerful as, you know, this. In fact, we use a stacked model. So this API is being called by the Java API. So if we need new function, we don't add it in here. We add it in over here and then take advantage of it here. So that way, the way our development is stacked like that, we guarantee that all of our APIs are in sync at all times. And last but not least, we have ISF calls migration aid here that provides investment protection and access to, you know, any shareware or anything that somebody's written a little script using ISF calls, and for the most part, those things operate unchanged. You don't generally need to make any changes to make them operate with our migration aid there. So that's a kind of a neat thing to be able to take advantage of. CAI, Customer Application Infrastructure, is a framework that lets you develop your own plugins. They're very easy to write. They're very short. You know, for the most part, we take care of all the heavy lifting under the covers. We distribute some on our own, and if I have time for a demo, I'll even be able to demonstrate one or more of these. But like you can FTP a report object to a server, or email one to somebody, or other things like that. People write their own. This is one that we use internally. It's just a short little thing just to show you how easy it is to do. But if you have a sysm dump in spool, you can, this little script will basically allow you to extract that to disk and then import the dump into IPCS so that you can start working on it. And as developers, we do that kind of thing more often than you do probably. Okay. I mentioned the CA Core Software Manager, and our traditional install is this left-hand bar right here. And if you want to take advantage of CSM, and we've had really good feedback on this, the folks that have actually used it, and it's not that many, I'll admit. We've only had a few folks actually use this so far. I don't know if that means that they're not using Core Software Manager, or if it means that our traditional install is so simple they don't need to. Honestly, I have no insight into that at all. But in any case, the ones that have really told us they like it. And all you do is basically answer a question. Are you doing CSM, yes or no? And it goes on to this other path here, which in your environment, not in ours, you're not downloading something off our website that's packaged for CSM. We actually package it right then and there under your TSO user ID and create the input in a ZOS file system, a ZFS somewhere, and then that becomes input to CSM, and you actually do the install with CSM. And then when you get to the step where you would be submitting these customized jobs, on the old approach, you would be submitting all the jobs. That includes receive, apply, accept, and all that stuff. Whereas over here, that receive, apply, accept stuff is all done with CSM, and these jobs here is just a few remaining jobs that do post-install customization and things like that. It wouldn't be a complete presentation if I didn't mention that we have very common sense licensing. We do subcapacity pricing. Here's something that's great. We've done from the beginning enterprise-wide MSU aggregation, whereas a lot of other vendors have done things like, on a per machine basis, or on a, they start over the counter at PSLC, let's say, the parallel sysplex boundary, or maybe even a site boundary. And now I'm hearing that people are starting to do countrywide boundaries and things like that. So they're starting to catch up with, our notions of what was common sense. And this happens to us a lot. We come up with an idea, and then years or maybe even decades later, everybody else comes around to our way of thinking. And last but not least, this is kind of neat. License checking is on client use only, so you can actually deploy servers around your environment. And to the extent that someone can manage one system remotely from another system, you're really only paying for licenses on the system where you have that client. So the servers can run anywhere. And we actually have customers that are taking advantage of that to keep their costs down. And, I certainly don't blame them. It makes sense. I might do the same thing. So, just a little disclaimer, license terms are always subject to change, but this stuff has been the same from the beginning. I think we started this back in, I don't know, I'm going to say like the year 2000. So, and really I haven't changed much about it. Okay, so our press release for 5.4, we talked about that it was generally available, and the primary thing was JES Web, Java-based web interface that should satisfy users accustomed to response time characteristics of JES under ISPF, and the fact that all displays are supported, including time-oriented browsers like OperaLog. And then here's that thing about the de facto, my little quote there. We also had some other things, which were all great things, but I'm only going to focus today on the JES Web. I do want to mention this statement of direction that we expect to be delivering things around this whole JES Web deliverable such that our Windows-based JES workstation component is going to be obsoleted, and therefore, expect to see that removed in some future release. So the way JES Web is structured, and this is kind of funny because I guess being a mainframe guy and the server guy, I always put the mainframe at the top of all my charts. And at the bottom, you find, peripherals and, edge users and servers and things like that. And when I went to go just figure how I was going to describe this chart, I realized I really had to start from the bottom up. So I guess a browser guy would probably invert this whole thing and put the browser at the top. Anyway, so every browser, whether it's Chrome or Firefox or whatever, you have this native browser code, and then they have implementations of JavaScript. And they're all a little bit different. And so what we do is we use something called jQuery, which hides the differences between the JavaScript implementations on these different browsers. So i.e. Chrome, Firefox, Safari, whatever you're using, we're talking to jQuery, and that is hiding those differences so that we see a consistent interface. Then we use asynchronous, so AJAX is asynchronous JavaScript and XML, for those of you that don't know. So we fire off a lot of asynchronous AJAX transactions. They can all run, behind the scenes, so the browser could just be sitting there, and all this stuff can be going on in the background. And those carry these HTML JSON payloads up to this JES Web service, which is a RESTful API. So we're using, only the standard CRUD, create, update, delete, or also called get, put, post, and delete. Those are the four functions in a standard CRUD interface. And this is all part of JES Web. So that part is the JES Web part. And then JES Web sits on top of our JES Java API, which is part of JES's API. So we are utilizing the Java API, which then in turn calls the JNI DLL, which is written in C++, that calls the JES API itself, and then that runs on the JES base at the end. And this whole thing is hosted on an Apache Tomcat server, which we have done a little bit of customization on to make it run for our needs. So the characteristics of JES Web, we have a performance objective, which is no sacrifice, okay? We want to get away from that accepted double standard that, oh, well, if it's on the web, it could be slow, but, you need to have this fast 3270 interface. That's not good enough. We want to replicate the experience that 3270 users get in terms of performance, right, in terms of response time, while adding, the obvious qualities of service of being able to have a modern GUI interface. So these are some refresh times in our environment, okay, and this is what we've got, a BC12, BO3 with a zip and an OS Express 5 connected through a standard gigabit Ethernet backbone to, just regular PCs, i7 CPUs with running Firefox on Microsoft 64-bit Windows. This is a pretty standard environment. And these are the numbers we get out of it, okay? So if you're looking at the activity display with 52 jobs, it's less than a quarter second, right? Just a little over 2/10 of a second here. There's only 5 jobs. It's less than a 1/10 of a second. The status, and these are full refreshes, understand. It's not just, give me just the data on that screen. We're talking about updating all the data underneath, going out to JES, WLM, whatever it is, getting all the data, and then bring it all the way down to the workstation. Status, less than 2/10 of a second, and here for only 15 jobs, less than a 1/10 of a second. So these are good numbers. For me, I'm very proud of this. The guys that are working on this are doing a great job, and I can actually use this thing and feel like, yeah, I'm not waiting. I'm not having to deal with that real double standard I don't like. The mainframe find, all those ISPF-like capabilities are there. Our model is ultra thin, right? We're doing all the heavy lifting, sorting, filtering, searching, et cetera, is all being done on the server. So that's why it runs as fast as it does. It's all in Java or, EJS itself, the base, running on a zip somewhere. We use classic context menus. I wouldn't have even had to put this in if I didn't find out that, one of our competitors doesn't. I can't understand why anybody wouldn't do that, but they don't, So again, ease of use has to do with doing things the way people are used to it. We do support, all of our displays, including time-oriented browsers, and these displays are conspicuously absent in competitive implementation, so I wanted to point them out. We didn't think it was that big of a deal to do, but apparently it is. And we recently added this ability to download into a PDF, so I wanted to add that to this chart as well. And we try to simplify things. That's the idea. So here's a classic competitor's browsing experience. They divide the server data into pages of n lines each. Okay, that's reasonable. You need that. And then a page of data is what's downloaded to the client. Also reasonable. But instead of using this as a hidden cache, they actually surface the organization of these pages to the end user. This is where I start to shake my head. I don't understand it at all. It makes no sense. And then so at that point, let's say your page is 1,000 or 2,000 lines. When you scroll up and down, you're just scrolling up within those. And that's it, the top of the page and the bottom of the page, not the data. Then if you want to see something else, you got to go select another page somewhere, either previous one, next one, or some randomly selected. This is silly, right? This is my personal opinion. I guess my personal opinions throughout this whole presentation. But in any case, consider the audience. This stuff should be as easy as possible. Why should it be so complex? Why not just do the obvious thing? And for us, it doesn't make any sense to do anything else. You're showing the data there. When you scroll to the top, you see the top. When you scroll to the bottom, you see the bottom. You can reposition with the scroll bar, or, we have a locate pop-up as well. And any subdividing of the server resident data, and of course all programs do this, it's internal. It's never surfaced to the user. So the user does not see any of that nonsense. And here's an example, right? You're sitting here in this browser, and if I take this little scroll bar and I bring it to the top, I'm at the top of my report. If I bring it to the bottom, I'm at the bottom of my report. It's just that simple. I don't know why you'd do anything else, but, somebody chose to do it, so I got to point it out. Here's, what a find would look like. You just do F, you get a search pop-up. The cursor behaviors in here are just like you would see in regular EJS browser or an ISPF. Where we're highlighting all the hits, but then the one that you're actually sort of positioned to has a slightly different kind of a highlighting. And we also support, here I didn't do it, but I could have said Phoenix, Word, or something like that. Any of the ISPF options. Here again is that standard context menu where you right-click on something and you get some choices, and then you can click on those and you get sub-choices below that. That's not our invention. That's just convention. But why anybody would do anything different, I don't know. But we do that, and it's meant to be friendly. And we didn't do it deliberately to compete with anybody. We just did it because that's how these things ought to be done, in my opinion. So, there it is. If you want to issue system commands, you would just press /. That's a familiar character for that. Type in your command. There's your response right there. And then this says pause for a demo if there is time, and I'm looking at the clock. It looks like I do have just a little bit of time here. So let me see if I can make this work. People always say, well, you shouldn't do demos because, that's when things have a tendency to fail. It's true, and that's one of the reasons why I like to do it because, I like to do things that are different from what people expect. Anyway, I just want to show here that we are supporting, all of the displays. I mean, if whether it's the activity display or okay, I need to set some filters up here. Hold on a second. This is probably why they say don't do demos, because then you're, before you know it, you're having to tweak things. But anyway, you can get an idea here for the kind of response time I'm getting out of this thing. I mean, it's very fast for a web type service. And if I go to processes or let's see over here, resources, I want to go look at the log. In this case, it's Opera log. If I do a find on here, one of my colleagues is named Jim P, and there's, I'm finding through this stuff. It's fast, it's easy to use, it's just like you'd expect it to be. If I want to issue a command here, that display ASM command ought to, there you go, there's a little pop-up, shows you the response in this window. And I think if I hit escape, it goes away. Yeah, so it does. A couple other things. Download as PDF, that thing that we just recently added. And so let me see if I can quick find a job here. And all right, so here's some, we just did some restores of a ZOS system, 2.2 actually we're working on. And if you do download as PDF, you have a couple options here. One would be to discard the carriage control, for example. If I do that and you get this PDF, I'll look at it in Adobe Acrobat. And you can see all the carriage control, everything's just jammed together, and there's the job. If that's the way you like that, you can have it that way. Or another way would be to honor the carriage control. Let's see how that download as PDF. And we say interpret the carriage control. And again, we're going to view it inside the Acrobat Reader. And now you can see that the carriage control's been honored. And see at the top, page 1, page 2. So, this thing now is ready to be printed. So you could print it, you could, of course, archive it, save it, whatever. You could print it anywhere you want to do. So, and just so the 3270 users don't feel left out or anything like that, I'm going to actually demo real quick. I've done 1 million demos in EJS. There's 1,000 things to demo. But what I'm going to do here is demo very quickly just emailing something. So I'm going to take this job right here. I have it's from me. I'm sending it to myself. I have a CC list here, and if I go here, you can see I have multiple people on this CC list, and that's what this triple dots mean here. You could have those for the 2 or the CC or the BCC, whatever. And I'm just going to say, this is a sample output or something like that. That's our cover letter. And then the actual job itself would be sent as a text-based attachment on the email. Now let me go over to my inbox here and see if it's arrived yet. Oh, how quick. Sometimes the bits take a little longer to go than other times. Anyway, you can see here, it was to me, CC there. This is the cover letter here, and then this is the attachment right here. So it's really just that simple. People love that. They use it all the time. And, there's a lot of similar capabilities like that. We just want to make everything as easy to use as possible in this product. And I should point out that, let's see, where was I when I did that? Here. Okay. There are various options as far as the transport. So you can either do NJE, sockets, or XMID IP. A friend of mine, Lionel Dyke, wrote this XMID IP right here, which really we use a lot. It does some very slick things, but it is freeware, so not everybody can install it. But if you're able to, I highly recommend that. But otherwise, we support all 3 of these. All right, so let me see if I can get back out of this and continue on with my presentation. I'm almost done, so thank you very much for bearing with me. And here we are. This is really my last slide. So I just want to clarify what our business model is here with EJS. It's really that same thing that's articulated on the cover sheet of our presentation. More with less for less, okay? So we offer more functionality and ease of use than the competing alternatives. We use far fewer resources, and our benchmarks show between 3.5 to 12.5x improvement, and for less, bottom line, hard dollar cost savings down the line. So the idea here is to remove these traditional trade-offs, right? So instead of somebody saying, oh, well, we're getting more function out of this, but it's going to cost us more, and then they sit around having meetings about it, well, can we get by with what we have, or is it worth the money? What's our ROI on this and stuff like that? We want to invert that whole thinking all the way upside down and ask just the opposite question. Why should I pay higher license costs for worse function and worse performance, right? So, and that way EJS just becomes, like a no-brainer, right? It's a no-brainer ZOS software purchase decision of all time. So that's really the goal right there in terms of removing those trade-offs. Now, how do we do that? Nothing's free. Well, the bottom line is our license costs are much closer to the real cost of doing business without all this overhead. We don't have big, expensive pension plans. We don't have, an army of highly paid execs. We don't have, you've seen these guys with their $5,000 suits, the salesmen who drive luxury cars and play golf with your CIO. We just don't have people like that. We don't have stockholders taking cash out of a public company in the form of dividends. So all that is overhead, and we don't have any of that overhead. So with us, it's really the cost of doing business, and the license costs are down in that area, and that's how we do it. It's a very simple thing. Broad business objectives, we want to develop world-class software that leverages the latest Z Systems technology. We love doing this. This is our job. It's what we want to do and continue to do because we find it very fun. We also want to help the platform compete against the alternatives. I'll admit it, I'm a mainframe bigot. I like ZOS, I like Z Systems, and I want that platform to survive. So we want to do all that we can to help that platform compete. And lastly, we want to help enable our customers to stay competitive in their respective industries. Obviously, that's win-win. If we help them, that helps the platform. That basically, helps these two objectives up here if our customers stay competitive. And, of course, if they have our product and their competitor doesn't, who are we going to root for? Obviously, we're rooting for our customer. And so we do everything we can to give them the absolute best product they can have that helps them compete against those other guys. And sometimes the other guys are Z guys, but a lot of times they're on other platforms, and that just makes it even worse. So we fight even harder. Okay, and that's it. So it looks like it's about, 10 minutes to the hour, so I think I finished right on time, and I can pause right here for questions if there are any.
Great, thanks. So we'll take just a few minutes to answer some questions now. Again, if you have a question, you can use the Q&A panel on the right side of your screen to send it in. Okay, first question. Are most of your customers JES 3?
That's a good question. Yeah, so I don't know if that's coming from a competitor or what, but somebody tried to say, oh, you're like a niche product or something that's JES 3 only. No, we do have a lot of very loyal JES 3 customers. We love JES 3 as a platform, but also JES 2. We run them both. And, in fact, most of our customers are JES 2. I would say, I don't know exactly what the split is, but it's at least probably a 60-40 split or something like that, JES 2 more than JES 3. So, yeah, but it's a funny question. Thanks for asking.
Is there anything special that must be installed to use the email function?
That's also a very good question. All right, so I showed you there that there were three options: NJE, sockets, or XMID IP, and I gave a plug to Lionel Dyke. Now, NJE does require a little bit of setup. I'm guessing most people have that set up on their system to be able to send email off the mainframe. Now, if you don't have anything set up, you can use that middle choice, sockets. And what sockets is it's a native implementation of an SMTP, the complete thing in Rex. And so it doesn't perform all that well, I will tell you right now. It's slow, but it works without any help at all. So you don't need NJE, you don't need XMID IP, you don't need anything. All you need is the ability to talk to an SMTP server somewhere, which is the essence of email. Of course, you're doing that. And it will work. So the answer is no, you don't have to do anything special.
All right, great. I'm a performance engineer. Can you reposition the status view columns to put the performance data on one panel without scrolling? And can you sort descending on a column?
Absolutely. I guess I should have done a little bit of demo on that. Maybe I'll actually switch back to my screens while I'm answering. But yeah, moving stuff around is super easy, and I'll just give you an example. So if we're talking about the activity display here, if you want to sort by something, let's say CPU, one real easy way is just to double click on it like this, okay? And, you know, like I say, we use advanced 3270 kind of stuff. That's one of the things that we would do right there. Obviously, at the moment, well, let's see. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's really any. Oh, here we go. Yeah, that gets us the. Yeah, there's not much going on in this system. And then as far as arranging stuff, of course, I mean, I could say, all right, I want to arrange zip percentage after job ID or something like that. And there it is. It just moved into place right here. So, yeah, you can customize yourself to your blue in the face that way. You can do it at an installation level as well as on a per user level. And you can do all these same things in the JES Web as well.
How much of JES Web will run in zip?
Oh, wow. That is a that's another great question. So JES itself runs, as I showed you, like 94%, an ISPF transaction looping by hitting enter over and over from 3270. We got 94%. Now, we didn't actually measure the same thing for JES Web yet, so that's something we really need to do. But I will point out that JES Web is implemented in Java, and because of that, Java itself runs on zip. It actually runs on ZAP, but these days ZAPs are no longer even on the hardware. And so there's a feature in the operating system called ZAP on zip, and that moves it to the zip. So in that stacked diagram that I had that showed JES Web was Java, and then it calls the Java API. That's also Java. All of that is running on a zip. And then that one layer, the JNI, that was written in C++, that actually is not zip eligible. And then JES itself would then again be zip eligible. So my guess is that JES Web is going to have a similar characteristic to ISPF, and you're going to see something in the neighborhood of, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say 90%. That would be my guess, in the 90% range. It may be much higher. We haven't actually measured it, but I think that's what you're going to find. So, yeah, thank you. Good question.
All right, you chose Tomcat over ZOS Management Facility. Is there a reason for that?
Well, okay. You have to understand, first of all, that ZOS MF is not an environment in which other functions are allowed to run. IBM owns that environment, and they only put IBM code into it. Now, having said that, they do allow linking to other servers. What's done here is that ZOS MF is actually is riding in an environment called WebSphere Liberty Profile. Okay, it is possible to do for us. We could have decided to use WebSphere Liberty Profile. And that may be a future thing we might do. I don't know. I can't say we wouldn't. But it would not be under ZOS MF in any case, because ZOS MF is itself something that runs on a Liberty profile. But what they do is they allow you to do linking. And so, oh, look, I just happen to have it open because that's where I was. Anyway, so what you can do is anywhere here on the left, you can create links, and you can say which users are able to see them. And you can put JES Web under ZOS MF, and when you do that, then you're running it like that. So the difference is, if I were to do a native ZOS MF looking implementation, which I could do, then you'd have this blue bar on the left, and you'd have a tab over here that would run something like, maybe like what it looks like if you click on software management or something like that. You have another tab here, as opposed to a tab up here. So, it's really 6 of one, half dozen of the other. We like Tomcat. It's free. We know how to use it. And, I'm not saying we wouldn't use Liberty Profile at some point in the future, but right now there's really no reason. I mean, as far as the end user is concerned, this is integrated right here. They can go into ZOS MF, click on JES Web, and then they can be running JES Web. So it's, it's sort of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other as far as that goes.
All right, how hard is it to convert SDSF security over to JES?
Well, We actually do for prospects, new customers, we do something called a conversion of ISF PARMs. So if they have that thing, we'll actually convert it for them over to our similar security. If they're already using SAF, then there really is almost no conversion needed because the SAF controls are very, very similar. JES spool is JES spool, and the way it's controlled, you know, is really not a product-specific thing. So, you know, we've had a lot of people do it. I can't give an exact answer on how hard it is. I think it just depends on how many rules and things they have set up. But it's not a very difficult thing. It certainly hasn't been anything that's stopped anybody so far.
All right, let me try to sneak one last question in here. Can you select, cut, and paste from a panel to a Word document?
Yes, you can. You can, of course, yes, you can. That was a bad example, obviously. I chose something that's not running on this system, I guess. Let me try again, something that actually has output. All right, so right there, you know, I'm just selecting something, and I do a copy. And then if I create a Word document somewhere, I should be able to just paste it right in. Okay, and there's the data right there. It didn't say it looked great, but it did it right there. So, yeah, absolutely. It's all integrated with all the things you'd expect to see on any web-based or PC-based product.
All right, great. Well, thank you, Ed, for sharing your expertise with us today. Just a quick note that we will be sending out a link early next week to a recording of today's presentation to everyone who's on the call, as well as to anyone who registered for the event but for whatever reason couldn't make it. So that concludes our webinar. I want to thank everyone for attending, and have a great day.